सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Yesterday we saw a very beautiful concept unfolding where Bhagavan says, Niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jyayohya akarmanaha sharira yatra pichate na prasidhyed akarmanaha. Before I proceed further, can you all hear me clearly? Everybody? Koncham penchara. Hari Om. Much better? Okay. Sharira yatra pichate na prasidhyet akarmanaha. Niyatam kuru karmatvam. Everybody has only one way of life. Act we must. The karma has to be performed. There is no point in life wherein we can anticipate, expect, or dream about that I am waiting for that moment in life where I will have no responsibilities. If not anything, at least you have to be responsible for your own bodily needs. Sharira yatra pichate na prasidhyet akarmanaha. Therefore, being not engaged in responsibilities is not the way of life. Therefore, how should one be performing these actions? So the concept that was introduced, yajnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangas samachara. Yajnarthat karmanonyatra. The attitude with which we should be performing is that we are not actually independent individuals. We are interdependent. Directly or indirectly, we are interdependent. There are so many that have to put their skill sets into particular use and put it into action for even a grain to reach our table. Everything else, so many have to spend their lifetime so that you and I can survive and thrive on the top of it. We are not independent. The best is when all of us can bring each one of our particular skill sets together so that in that unifying act of bringing all the different acts of skills together, everybody benefits off of each other's skill sets. See, even in the Havan or Yajna Karma that is to be done, there are actually required 4 priests to do the yaga. There is a Ritvik, Hota, Brahma, Advaryu. There are 4 of them. Each one is an expert in one particular Veda. Brahma has to be a Chaturvedi, not by name, not just by name. Chaturvedi meaning the one who has a good understanding of all 4 Vedas. So the Yajaman who is doing the Sankalpa for a certain, whatever be the Sankalpa, so the Yajaman has to be there, the qualified Yajaman has to be there, the qualified Yajaman now has to bring in the 4 priests. Along with the 4 priests, there will be at least 2 or 4 assistants to assist them. Then there has to be the firewood, and it is not any kind of firewood, and it is not any kind of fire pit. There are dimensions given, there are measurements given, there is a number of bricks to be used, what shape of bricks to be used. So you need that kind of person who has the understanding of constructing it. The first mention of decimals and circular bodies to be constructed, you find in the Vedic literature. In the Richa, you will find it. So it has to be constructed. The appropriate material has to be brought in. For us, externally, ghee means ghee. In English, when you translate, everything is ghee. What is ghee called in Sanskritam? Ghratam. What else? Ajyam. So various names. I'm glad you mentioned Ajyam. Ajyam is that kind of ghee which is prepared, which is used for the sacrifices to be, oblations to be offered in the Havan, in the Yaga. And it is not that you get butter, put it on the fire in a pot and then it is done. Ajyam has a specificity that the ghee is made from the sun's light, not with fire. That the butter has to melt and all the impurities in the butter has to be evaporated, all the moisture in it has to be evaporated, and then what is left behind is called ajyam. Even the fire that has to be lit, and it would be a blasphemous thing that you borrow somebody's lighter or a matchstick. There is a whole process of churning the fire. You have to create the fire. There are 2 aranis, and in that arani there is a stick. There is a healthy Panditji who will hold the upper cup and the lower cup with the middle stick, which is made of a hardwood. The cups are made up of softwood, and they start churning it. In that churning friction, there is fire born, and to that they add cotton and other fiber, which they invoke that fire so that they can be starting the oblations in that fire thus raised. So yajna, it is not that an individual will sit down in fire in front of a square pit and start doing whatever. There are methods and processes where so many other people with their skill sets have to come in to make that yajna a success. Similarly, in life, You and I can get the best of it when I understand my skill sets and bring it onto the table. You understand your skill sets and bring it onto the table. A collective endeavor of togetherness is what brings the best to the entire society. Yajnarthat karmanonyatra. If somebody were to ask, भगवान एडवाइस तो अच्छा है, आपने भी तो क्रिएट किया है. हाउ इज द क्रिएशन? Says the entire creation follows this law. Purovacha prajapati. And his first message to the entire creation was that this bhava of togetherness, bringing our prowess, our skill sets, our talent, our potential together for the greater good, is verily like the kamadhenu in our lives. Now, when this kind of yajna bhava karma is performed, is there a scope for the ego and selfishness to exist and persist? You have to transcend that ego to share your skill sets and talent, so that when others bring their skill sets and talent, it can match properly to create something constructively beautiful. That which lasts for several generations. North has been impacted by various kinds of atrocious invaders. So you don't find the grandeur there in the northern part of India. You come to the southern part, every village has several ancient temples, thousands of years old. That which is built by the Chola or the Pandya, Chalukya, Hoysala. I mean, these temples are so beautiful, that long lasting, that even after 1,000 years, they are a spectacle to watch. And there are so many things that I can go into detail, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is to say that when each individual brings their best, that is when the entire society benefits, not just you and me for this lifetime. The generations to come will also benefit from it. And when that generation begins, it has to not start from the scratch. They will start from the highest possible that the earlier generation has given to them. From there on, they build the higher possibilities. And the nature also behaves in this similar pattern. Everything of nature constantly is in the mode of giving, sharing, sacrificing. No tree ever eats its own fruit. No tree ever hides the best of its fruits for its own later leisurely enjoyment. I was at somebody's house. There's a very elderly couple. They live in Bombay. He was a professor at IIT Bombay, and he married a very innocent, straightforward lady who has not studied much, but very practical in her approach. So whenever I visit Bombay, I go to their house. I've known them for last 35, 40 years. Even before I had the thought of, becoming a brahmachari or a sannyasi, I knew them. So one day after I was a brahmachari, I went to their house, and I don't know for what reason, I said, night I don't need dinner. If there are any fruits, I will take. And she's so practical, elderly lady, so she says to her husband, पका के रख दिया है, खा लेना, मैं जा रही हूं सोने. And she kind of remembered that I am also there in their house. So she comes out of her room and says, केले और सेब रखे हुए हैं, पहले केले खा लेना. Said okay, but she should have stopped there. In her straightforward innocence, she says, कल काम वाली भी नहीं आ रही है, कल को खराब हो जाएंगे, तुम पहले वो खाना. She didn't mean that, that which is to be thrown away, therefore you finish it first. She was being practical. But many of us, when we even give alms, it is not the freshly cooked food that is given, which is supposed to be the act to be when we think of giving something. It is that which is left over, or today's technology, that which is so ancient that it has been lying in the back of your fridge. You don't know when you had cooked, therefore now, de do. The entire creation follows this rule. Give and give and give. In the human world, when can that giving become a consistent possibility? Where there is love, giving becomes a possibility. And in love, there cannot be an argument saying, how long do I keep sacrificing myself and giving? You love, and love is expressed. It's a very abstract concept. Love is often expressed only in the act of giving, sharing, sacrificing. How long? However long it takes. Of the entire creation, of the 84 lakh of different kinds of species, Jivarashis that we are, implicitly the rest of the creation follows this law that was given by Brahmaji in the beginning of creation. It's only us, the human beings, who have the freedom of choice, who has to be educated again and again, reminded again and again that giving should be your highest criteria. Giving more than what we take and producing more than what we consume. Gurudev put these two lines in the pledge. Now that far we have already seen. Now that we asked about how does this entire creation, the devas and the creation be taken care of. So that is given here in the 11th shloka. Repeat after me. Devan bhavayata nena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah paramavapsyatha. Devan bhavayata anena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah param avapsyatha. Every time I read the shloka, I go over the entire shloka, breaking each word so that each word is understood, so that when we go over the meanings, it becomes easier. In Sanskritam, that is called Sandhi Vichcheda. Devan bhavayata anena te deva bhavayantu vaha. Here, the word deva has to be understood properly. Otherwise, it will appear mostly like the Greek culture, wherein they also had a system of gods. And they would get angry, jealous If you do not take care of them, if you do not propitiate them, if you do not give the offerings to them, they would get angry. And in their anger, they would bring calamity to the people. This was their understanding. If the understanding of this particular shloka is not taken in proper light, it will end up being like the Greek mythology. So what does Deva mean? Deva here has to mean that it is the blessings of the productive potential. Each one of us has different kinds of skill sets, potentials, and one has to understand what those skill sets are to bring about the best of that skill sets into expression. Presently, all this concept will appear alien because for several generations we have only had the kind of mindset wherein we focus on getting jobs which give us a sense of security. Education has turned to become only a method to reach the means to make a living, not the real unfoldment from within. The earlier days, each individual, when they joined the Gurukula system, it was the teacher's job to observe the students, and the observation could be anywhere between 1 to 2 years. And the observation was what is the specificity of each individual, what are they good at, what are their inclinations, what is their skill set, what are their potentials, what are their talents. Identifying those talents and nourishing those talents, they would be bringing their talents up about, and there is a satisfaction and fulfillment in living such life. Nowadays it appears alien because everybody that is to be educated, at least in our Bharatavarsha, has to be one of the 4 main professions. What are the 4 main professions? Either you become that is why you see the moment they get out of the 10th grade and they come into the 11th and 12th, the choices are very, very little. You have one stream of MPC, the other stream of BIPC, and the third stream of the rest of it. HEC, MEC, CEC. Other than these 3, there is not much available. Am I right? So you are destined to, and in that, the student has his own inclinations, wants to do something, and the parents, the environment, the teachers, and their pressure is you should now become one of the 3. Either you take into becoming an engineer, or into the medical field, or into the accounts. Further, if you have a choice, law, maybe the 4th option. There is no focus, there is no attention given to what is the skill set that the child is born with. Therefore, we as the Indians, we are individually ingenious, collectively a calamity. Because we never come together to pool our different resources. We have never looked into what our skill sets are. Devan bhavayatanena. The one who understands this sacred potential in each one hidden, brings that out, nourishes that out to perfection. Whatever be those talents, there are different kinds of talents. Thus, when that talent is brought forth to the expression, manifestation, that which you have engaged in the earlier formative days in bringing about, that will bless you back. So, whatever are the passions inside, that has a field of satisfactory environment around. Last time in the second chapter, I had given the example for us to understand better the example of the Pandavas. How many were the Pancha Pandavas? Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva. They were admitted into the Gurukula, Dronacharya's Gurukula. Having thus been admitted into Dronacharya's Gurukula, all of them were taught one aspect common syllabus, common curriculum. And what was that common syllabus? Because in Dronacharya's Gurukula, the entrance was only for Kshatriyas. That was the understanding between Dronacharya and Bhishmacharya. So to all those Kshatriya warriors to be, Raja Dharma had to be taught. That was common syllabus. Along with that Raja Dharma, they had to now learn certain Astra Shastra skills that they had to develop. So if you look at each one of them, Yudhishthira picked up the skill of warfare, and what was he good at? He was good at the spear. What was Bhima good at? He was good at two aspects. One was Malla Yuddha and the second was the Gada, the mace. Nakula Sahadeva, they both picked the sword. They were amazing swordsmen. Now this is with regards to the Raja Dharma, Astra Shastra. Each one of them had a different kind of potential that they wanted to pursue. Therefore, Yudhishthira picked Dharma Shastra as his passion. Along with Raja Dharma, he picked Dharma Shastra. Bhima, what did he pick? He picked Paka Shastra. If Bhima were to be born in today's age and time, Kunti would have definitely said, बावर्ची बनेगा? छी 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 छी, इंजीनियर बनना चाहिए तुम्हें. And that skill set is looked down upon. But he became an ace cook. That even to this day, when we talk of ancient times and great cooks, we say Nala Bhima Paka. Then comes Nakula and Sahadeva. Nakula picked up animal husbandry, veterinary doctor. He was a very good veterinary doctor. Sahadeva became astrology and astronomy was his main theme of study. That was his passion. If you observed, I missed Arjuna in between. And that was with purpose. For him, both the passion and the profession was the same thing. And that was archery. He had no other passion. The rest of them picked up other skill sets. He was zoned in, only dedicated his life for archery. Nothing else. Very few, one in several thousand, have that opportunity wherein your passion and profession is the same. Otherwise, one has to understand what is the passion, what is the profession, what are the skill sets, what are the talent, and one has to tap into that resource. One has to dedicatedly worship that particular talent. Now, what does worship mean? When somebody has the talent to sing, what is their worship? Day in and out, they have to be dedicated in their abhyasa, riyas. Early morning, 4 o'clock, wake up. I've seen this in Gangaji, I've seen this in Krishna Nadi, that they would come with their students and they would go neck deep into the river. Early morning, 4 o'clock. Why? The gamakas come out better. When you are in cold water, try next time taking a cold shower, you will automatically have several nodes open up because it is shivering. And they make that practice of it for several hours, for several years at end. That is the worship of that particular talent. Thus, those who worship this hidden potential in one's own self, that potential comes back to bless you. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha. That talent comes back to bless you. Parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah paramavapnuyat. Thus, supported by each other, bring that talent, skill set and potential to that highest possible expression. That each one's talent becomes a genius in expression. And that is why you look at the ancient works that have been done. You look into mathematics, you have Aryabhatta, Bhaskaracharya, Leelavati, the list goes on. Astronomy and astrology, you have several other lists. You have Surya Siddhanta, you have Aryabhattiya. Then you go into chemistry, there is so much of, geniuses born. And what do we end up saying to our school children? India has found zero. Aryabhatta's contribution, that is why you look at the Roman numerals, there is no decimal level because there was no scope in their understanding for zero. What is the first time that zero reflects or zero could have reflected was in 10. And 10 they put it as an X mark. 20, 2 X marks. That is how it develops. They did not have the concept of decimals. When the Yagashala had to have a circular, and in that circular, the radius that had to be decided and the angular motions that had to be decided had to be in decimals. So Aryabhatta's contribution is not just zero but the decimal and the negative numbers. What a great contribution. You look at the past, you have scores of them. Why? The focus was that which is their individual talent potential. That has to be recognized first, nourished to perfection. And then that which you have nourished and dedicated your life for, that brings in the benefit of collective endeavor, where you pitch all these mastered skill sets into one homogeneous expression. The entire society benefits from such an endeavor. Parasparam bhavayantaha shreyaha param avapnuyam. That is why in those days there was no need for currency exchange. Why? You give me your skill sets, I will give you my skill sets. Or you give me the products produced by your skill sets, I will share my products of my skill sets. This is how you support me, I support you. Thus, thereby the entire society is supported by each other. What do we call this system today? Barter system. We went through several kinds of coins, several kinds of currencies, then it came the paper currency, and from the paper currency, then it went into the stocks, then stocks became bonds. Now, what is the latest currency? Bitcoin. That has also come into picture. One little war. I am not downplaying the war that is happening with Iran. That one singular war has brought us back to that barter system. I give you my resources of minerals and ores, you give me your petrol. No need to go through the dollar currency. Barter system again. And that was the system, and that was a necessity there, because there was the focus on enriching oneself with those talents. There are several benefits. I'll just mention one benefit. When forced into that environment wherein it is not according to my talent, potential and skill set, I may excel in it. I may do good in it. But there is no satisfaction in it. One of the famous tennis players, Andre Agassi. Do you remember his name? He was there just before or just along with Pete Sampras, right? He was the world number one. So he wrote his own autobiography. The first chapter, as he opens, he says, "Let me confess," in his book, after having been the world number one for several years at length. He says, "Let me confess in the beginning. Tennis is the game that I hate. I never wanted to be a tennis player." He was an immigrant into US and he was forced by his father to get into that game. When I say forced, it was like the Indian parenting. Yena kena prakarena. Samadana danda bheda. He applied all techniques and he was forced to become a tennis player, and he became a very good one at it. For at least 4 or 5 years, he was the world number one. And yet, what does he say at the end of his career? He says, "Though I have been world number one, I hate this game from the bottom of my heart. I have been successful, but not been happy." What a beautiful distinction made. I have been successful, but not happy. But if the focus, like in the earlier days, was to the talent, potential and skill sets that are to be entertained, what will happen? You will be definitely satisfied, and that talent, once you have nourished it to perfection, will bring you the success. Thereby, you will be successfully happy and happily successful. Both components are included. And in today's generation, since that is not included, what happens when we take into a profession where we are forced in because it gives you a financial security? After a certain time, that job starts appearing monotonous, boring, insipid, lackluster. There is no rasa in it. You are just dragging your 2 feet into that office chambers, finishing your job, coming. There is no satisfaction from inside. Look at how deeply the rishis had thought through every single detail of the human psyche. If this much is understood, the main purpose of looking into one's own talent, potential, and skill set is, in other words, these talents, potentials, skill sets are our tendencies. These tendencies are verily called vasana. If that vasana is not identified, not recognized, and not brought about to perfection and expressed selflessly, as long as these layers of tendencies exist, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani, jathare shayanam. The cycle of birth and death will continuously keep going because of those tendencies push the possibility of another birth into a reality. That which was a possibility now becomes a reality because we have not focused on those vasanas to be purged through the field of action. But the individual who has looked into their own talent, skill set, and potential, worshipped it, brought it to perfection, such individual has now found the method when they dedicate it to a higher altar and do it selflessly. It is exhausted out without creating another layer while giving you both joy and the accomplished success to cherish. Do you all get the logic of it? How deeply, how beautifully that they have thought through. Continuing. इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवाः दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः तैर्दत्तानप्रदायैभ्यः यो भुङ्क्तेस्तेन एव सः. Thus, that which we have nourished ourselves with the support of others from outside and brought out the best amongst us to be cherished. Ishtan bhogan hivo devaha, and the results of that deva blessing, that potential blessing us with both success and joy, when we get that result, tair dattana pradayebhyaha, that result when it is gained, if it is enjoyed only by me because I have put the effort and not shared with others. The last sentence of this shloka, mark it with the red line. Yo bhunkte, the one who selfishly enjoys it only for himself or herself, such individual is called stena eva saha, is verily a thief. Therefore, again revisiting and re-insisting the thought that I am not an independent individual, I am an interdependent being. Therefore, whatever that is coming to me as the bounty, the best of my efforts, those efforts have to be shared with everyone. That becomes my responsibility. We know that the even if you look at from the yajna, the havan and homa and yaga that is to be done, even in there they say that the results that come out of that act, they have to be given to 5 different aspects. They say Deva Yajna, Rishi Yajna, Pitru Yajna, Manushya Yajna and Bhuta Yajna. This is completely the vocabulary used in the Homa, Havan and that ritual practices. But it has a lot of meaning and sense in it. That whatever be the results, one portion of it to be dedicated and given to the Almighty. That whatever comes as a bounty to me, as an experience, first and foremost that you have to do is take it and offer it to Bhagavan. The rest is the prasada from that Bhagavan. Whether you bring fruits to home or your salary home or anything that comes, first that has to go as an offering to Bhagavan, Deva Yajna. The second is Rishi Yajna, that our debt is not fulfilled if that which I am gaining is not shared as a dedicated act of giving it to that individual or institution which has taught me this knowledge so that I can be grounded to the Rishi Parampara, Rishi Yajna. Then comes, I am what I am today because of my ancestors. They had to go through whatever that they had to go through to provide me of this opportunity so that that which I have gained, a share of it should be given to the Pitrus also. Therefore, yearly once there is the Pitru Paksha that is performed in remembering those ancestors and thanking them for what they have given us so that I can cherish this present moment. That is called Pitru Yajna or Pitru Runa. Third one is Manushya. There are so many different people with their skill sets that they are dedicatedly providing it, because of which I am able to survive. Therefore, see, today the new political word used in Hindi is Revadiya Batna, to give lot of freebies to the society of various varga. One thing that the politicians have definitely mastered is the British legacy, divide and conquer. Put them in different varga, give them freebies. The freebie was not something that is to be given by the governance. It is the responsibility of each individual that we are, that we take what is given to us as the best of the results that I have gained back to the society. Therefore, a successful person, after having attained to the greatness of success, dedicatedly would develop the roads, dig wells, dig ponds, create Dharma Satra. Dharma Satra wherein all the travelers are given free food, water and stay. There was no concept of selling food, shelter and water. Now that has become a thriving business. In Bhagavatam, right in the beginning of that Bhagavatam, because Parikshita has to deal with Kali. Kali has come. So Parikshita deals with that Kali. How do you recognize that Kali Yuga has already started? So there are various things that are, generally we say wherever there are the vices, gambling, gold and such things, there is Kali, right? This is what we have heard. But there are sub-clauses. In those, one of those sub-clauses it says, Kali Yuga has come, the guarantee of it is that Yuga where food and water is not distributed but it is sold. When first time I was hearing it was in the ashram in 93, between 93 and 95. I was like, water? Is that sold? Have not seen it. 95 when I come out of the ashram, Bisleri had already taken its avatar. Water was being sold. God knows in future even oxygen packets may be sold. The way we are polluting nature. Or here and there we will have oxygen zones that I enter in for 2 minutes at a prime quality, at a prime payment and then come out. To provide for the rest of them all these amenities was the job of each individual and not of the governance. So Manushya Yajna, Manushya Runa, to be able to be there as a support for the fellow human being was an integral part of our way of life. When you go into the southern part of Karnataka, especially the coastal Karnataka, you will be amazed. First, the temples are clean. Having seen this side of temples, you would be in utter disbelief. ये टेम्पल किसी प्राइवेट ओनर का है? That is how spick and span it is, clean. There are no beggars anywhere around the temple. It does not mean that there is somebody holding a stick and chasing them away. There is no need for them to beg. Every temple provides meals for food for every devotee that comes. Even those that cannot afford to, the temple is already taking care. You can come without feeling any shyness. You can come eat food. Many of these schools during lunchtime walk up from their village to the nearest temple, and the temple first feeds those school children and then the rest of the devotees. Even to this day it is happening. But sadly, whenever we talk about a religious denomination which is distributing food, we don't remember our temples. What do we end up remembering? Langar. Gurudware ka langar. That is what we remember. Manushya Yajna. If at the level of humanness, I cannot be there to support another human being, what is the worth of me being a human being? And the last one is the Bhuta Yajna. Every household used to have Rangoli Mugulu in front of their house. They would sprinkle that cow dung mixed, then kalab, in their front threshold. Nicely cleaned. It is not the municipality's job to come and clean your front yard. It is your job to clean the front yard, the first thing before you even do anything else. And then spread this cow dung lepa, and then not a white chemical powder, but what is used? Rice flour is used. Rice flour, you put artistically beautiful rangoli patterns. Why? May the ants, may these small tiny beings, may they have something. That is my first contribution to the entire creation before even I start with my other responsibilities. Rivers are not something to be dirtied. Forests are not something to be emptied. You go first, pray to that mother, whichever river is flowing, and then with permission take that water back home. As much as I need water to drink and survive, the other Pashu Pakshi also requires. Therefore, in the backyard there would be a trough. In the olden days, they were carved out of stone. Big troughs of water. So that the animals, that wayward animals that would pass by, could quench their thirst. And there would be a pot of dhanya for the pakshi to eat. When I eat, I put 5 morsels of food outside so that it can be given to the birds after I eat. It is not that which is left over. Even before I can partake, I have put it aside. Bhuta yajna, bhuta runa. This is one way of concept to understand how I have to necessarily contribute because it is my responsibility to take care of the world. There is Shukra Niti here. Shukracharya says very beautifully, and he is quoted in Arthashastra by Chanakya. So Shukracharya says that a person with that skill set has to earn. How much should be the earning? So he says, whatever is your requirement to take care of you, your children, your family and your extended family, if that be an X amount, your earning should be 5x. Is the concept understood? Because there is a variation. The variation is, if you are not able to earn that much, whatever you are earning has to be divided into 5 portions, of which 1/5 alone is to be spent on you and your family. The first 1/5, he says, Rajya Bhara. Rajya Bhara, today's language, tax. Give it to the king. The kingdom should flourish and be protected. Rajya Bhara. The next 1/5 is to be for that Gurukula that has taught you to hone on your skills. So to that Gurukula goes, to that Guru goes your 1/5. Therefore, no student was joined into Gurukula after payment. डीडी पे किया, सील का है. When you show it, that is when you will be admitted. There was no payment. The Guru would teach. It was the students thus who have learned go into the field, establish themselves and then contribute back as royal patrons for that Gurukula and that Guru because he has taught them this very living. The first one is Rajya Bhara, the second one is to the Gurukula. Third, Shukracharya says, is to be given for your contribution in maintaining the amenities of the society. Fourth, today there is a concept of social security. Many countries provide it. It is not the government's job to provide social security. It is the individual's responsibility to be the security for their own elders. So when marriage used to happen, it is not marriage of two individuals. It is taking upon the responsibility that I am responsible for my side of parents, your side of parents, if there are grandparents, all of this setup and the extended family, it is my responsibility. Therefore, 1/5 goes in taking care of them. Another added point here. The girl, when she gets married into another family, she does not get the property. That was the Hindu way. She would not get the property. The sthira asti is not given. But the produce that is coming out of it, 1/5, that 1/5 which is to take care of the family, used to go every year, at least twice a year, to the sister, because that sister and the extension is also my responsibility. Thus, having taken care of these four, what is left, the last 1/5, I spend on myself and my family. If this distribution is not done, and all that I am focused is I, me, myself, I have to thrive, I have to make, I have to earn, I have to aggrandize, and such a mindset is called thieving. Stena eva saha. Such person is called a thief. Imagine Bhagavan making this very strong statement. Says, if you are not contributing to the welfare of the society, then you are definitely a thief. Stena eva saha. Continuing. यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तः मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापाः ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात्. When an individual thus understands this schematics, that it is not just that I am an independent individual, I am interdependent, I survive because of others doing what they are doing, therefore I am supported. And since I am being supported, it is my verily the responsibility to give that support back to that society to which I am an integral part of. Now what happens with this attitude? Selfishness reduces, selflessness increases by the design of the way of life that we live. But if this is not followed, and only selfishly I alone enjoy all that which I have earned, Bhagavan says, Bhunjate tu agham papaha. They are indulging in sin, agham, and they are eating, bhunjate, eating, papaha, the effects of that sin. if that distribution, that contribution, that sharing and sacrificing is not an integral part of our living and it is only selfishness, such individual, their mind can never find peace in life. They'll have everything except for peace of mind. And Gurudev used to beautifully say, Naraka, hell, is not somewhere. It is right here when I do something which is adharma, thus not contributing to that very society where I am an integral part of, would be considered adharma, agha, papa is done, and I am eating, partaking in that papa, bhunjate agham papaha. Who are such people? Ye pachanti atma karanat. Those who are cooking the benefits for their own selfish purposes. There is absolutely no redemption for such individuals. इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि at the end of the day I go put a penny, कुछ तो दिया. So once somebody, left this world, died, went to the assembly of Chitragupta. Chitragupta looked at his accounts and said, you are destined for Naraka. He protested. He said, I have to file a case. He said, go talk to my boss. Who is his boss? Yamadharma Raja. So Yamadharma Raja said, what is the issue? What is the case? He says, in his entire life of selfish living, he says he has given a penny in donation. For that he is seeking the credit so that he can go to Swarga. And this is just a joke, not a Puranic story. So Yamadharma Raja, having dealt with a lot of jivas coming from Kali Yuga, he thought for a while and he said, how much is it? A penny. How many years ago did he give? 15, 16 years ago. Calculate the interest, give him his penny and the interest, put him in Naraka. It is not that you do once in a while, sometime by mistake, galti se kuch daan ho gaya. It has to become a lifestyle, a responsibility. That whenever I see another individual with whatever sequences of issues that they have, my attitude should be, how can I be a solution for them in their life? यहां तो हम धूम दबा के भाग जाते हैं. मन के दुखले आज वाल तल रहा था. Remember, they also must have thought Vala Talrata in their last life, that is why it has become their Talrata. Our attitude should be, any individual coming in contact with us, how can I be a solution for them? What if they do not? Do you know the schematics of the entire karma? Why do you have to think that they have to give you back? Maybe in their last life they have already given. Now it is your opportunity to give and move forward without anticipating anything. Give and give and give. Be a solution. Be of support. Gurudev used to tell this story to small children. He used to say, both Swarga and Naraka looked very similar. So the Jiva who went, he was given a tour of Naraka. Amazing lavish buildings, amazing food, everything was available. But then, when they sat down to eat, their elbows were joined. They could not bend their elbow. So they could see everything but cannot enjoy. Naraka. So this fellow was given now the tour of Swarga. Swarga was also looking similar, but in that Swarga, they also had their joints, fused. But then, what were they doing? They sat in a circle. This fellow in his plate, whatever he gets, he is mixing it, and because the hand cannot bend, he is feeding the next fellow. And that fellow is feeding his next fellow. Parasparam bhavayantaha shreyaha paramavapniyat. That is called Swarga. Guruji is to define very beautifully. How do you be happy? He says there are so many definitions of how to be happy. But in his words, what I have observed is if you can keep those who are around you happy, then alone you can be happy. Very practical statement. If they are going through misery, how can I be happy? Therefore, my attitude itself should be, how can I be a solution for those who are coming across in my life? I am not talking of you jumping out and trying to find solutions for every Tom, Dick and Harry. नहीं कर पाओगे, impossible. At least to those that come to you, to your life as an experience, how can you be a solution? And if you have always been giving, providing, sharing, you don't have to worry about your security. It is taken care of. Hopefully, I have gotten across. Now, in the next two shlokas, the entire creative expression called this loka, how does it work? The entire schematics is given. So repeat after me. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhavaha yajnat bhavati parjanyaha yajnah karma samudbhavaha karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajne pratishtitam. Cycle of this creation is being enumerated. How does the entire creation sustain itself? Here the shloka and the sequence. See, the shloka goes according to the chandas. So the words are arranged according to the chandas. But when we do the anvaya of it, write down the whole shloka into a sentence, the sequence has to be correctly understood. So here, yajnaha karma samudbhavaha. For the yajna bhava to express, there has to be a field of activity. Karma has to be there. Now that karma has to be elevated, to the attitude of seva, attitude of yajna, collective endeavor so that everybody benefits. So karma, from karma comes yajna. Yajnat bhavati parjanyah. Wherever there is yajna being done with the right attitude, when the yajna bhava spirit is being implied, it brings forth parjanya, it rains forth the results. First, let's look at the word meaning, then we'll come to the deeper meaning. Parjanyat, wherever there is pushkala rains, what happens? Anna sambhavaha, there is a possibility of anna, food to be born. That food, annat bhavanti bhutani, sustains the entire creation. Where did this karma come from? Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. The karma has come from Brahmaji, the creator. Here there are 2 times the word Brahma used, and you have to understand the right meaning for each Brahma. The first one is the Chaturanana. Chaturanana, the four-headed creator. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. Where did this karma begin forth from? From the creator himself. He himself did the tapas, gained the knowledge and put that knowledge into practice, into action. So the first action stemmed out from Brahma. Where did this Brahma come from? This is Brahma Akshara Samudbhavam. Brahmaji was born from the Akshara Tattva, that Parabrahma Paramatma himself. Tasmat, therefore, all this cycle is connected directly to Tasmat Sarvagatam. All of this is connected to Brahma. Here the word Brahma means Brahma Tattva, not the Chaturanana. Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yagne Pratishtitam. Therefore, all that we have is the field of activity. In that field of activity, invoke every activity as a sanctified act of Yajna Bhava Karma. Not a single act should be done without that Yajna Bhava Karma. Tad Vishnoho Prityartham Idam Aham Karishyami. That should be the attitude. Now let's go through the sequence. Karma Yajna we have already seen in the last 3 shlokas. So I am not going to dwell more on that. The next sequence. Yajnat Bhavati Parjanyaha. From the Yajnas, Parjanya, rains fall. You may not believe it. Physically I have seen that there was this Varuna Mantra Japa followed by Varuna Homa. It was done in our own Yalaipalli ashram. And the Yajna Vedika that was created was flat on the ground. The priests that had come, the Panditjis that had come, they said, no, this will not be sufficient. We'll have to raise the platform at least 4.5 feet. It's only after the Yajna was done we understood as to why he said that. After the Yajna, as soon as the Purnahuti started, Purnahuti mantra was being chanted and the Purnahuti was held. Swami Sharda Priyanandam was also there. It was being offered into that sacrificial fire. It started raining. When I say it started raining, it was not like a drizzle. It was pouring down heavily. By the time it stopped, it was already half of that platform, the waters had already reached. I said, oh, they knew what they were doing. That's why they said, we have to raise the platform. So I have seen that when you perform yajna, rains do fall. More of a Chinmay mission account, at least in Hyderabad, what we have experienced, many of us can vouch for it. Whenever Gurudev came for a Jnana Yajna, I mean, almost every single day, just before the lecture, the earth would have been hot. He would come usually in that summer times. Unusual rains that it would come around 4 to 5, it would stop. The earth would cool down and then we would put the daris down, AV college and other places. Every time that he would do a yajna, there would be parjanya. Now all these other experience aside, getting to the shloka. Parjanya means rains. What are the other words that you know for rain in Sanskritam? Varsha. Right? But here they did not use the word Varsha. There are 17 different words in Sanskritam to identify rainwater. 17 different words. Why did they use Parjanya? That rainwater, when it hits the ground, because of it reaching the earth, it creates the possibility of grains to grow. It comes with that potentiality to bring life to the seed so that it can grow. Therefore, that water is called Parjanya. Pari janayati iti Parjanyaha. That because of which, that which has the ability to give growth, life. Therefore, it is called Parjanya. Somewhere in Bhagavatam, when Bhagavan Krishna looks at that gopi, and that gopi says that his look was like Parjanya. It gave me the source of life to continue living. That one look of his to me was sufficient. Parjanya, that potentiality with which things can grow. Parijanayati. Yajnat bhavati parjanya. When there is this kind of a dedicated yajna bhava karma done, results will rain forth. The moment we collectively, first I hone in my skills and we collectively honing on our skills come together, and in that act of togetherness, dedication and sharing, sacrificing, when the act is performed, because we have crossed the threshold of selfishness, selflessly in that coming togetherness, when the act is performed, it will yield bountiful results. It will rain, not just ikadukka. It will rain the results. And from this rain, annat bhavanti. Not just the food that we eat, all the aspects of the indriyas, there is food for eye, food for ears, food for taste, food for smell, food for touch. Don't we say food for thought? So food for all these organs. This Srishti starts creating, the entirety of it starts responding. See, the entire Prakriti is Janani, mother. When you put the sincere effort selflessly, which mother will be able to stop herself from not giving. When you try to grab, you can grab only your fistful, which is very tiny. When she gives bountiful with both her hands. So let that blessings flow through. Parjanya. Parjanyat anna sambhavaha. And based on the fulfillment of this anna, bhutani bhavanti. All of these jiva rashis are sustained. And this karma, where does it come from? Straight from Brahmaji. He was the first one to put this sacred act into motion. And that Brahmaji is directly from the Padmanabha. He is born from that Sri Narayana's Nabhi. That Parabrahma Paramatma's Nabhi he is expressed. And that Parabrahma Paramatma is verily the substratum supported by which all of this cycle can be sustained. So every single act that we perform connects us to that Paramatma, provided it is done with the selfless attitude of Yajna Bhava Karma. That karma which I cannot avoid, anyway I have to do. Make this small arrangement to make that attitude of gratitude as the very necessity, then that karma itself becomes devotion. It elevates my own act, and the best of me starts expressing. This is the beautiful cycle of the entire creation and how it is being sustained. We'll see further tomorrow. ओम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ